Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring Phek, our red Protoss in the bottom left corner, and in our top right we have Omicron, our blue Zerg. I believe both players are in Platinum. I know Phek is. I did not look up Omicron just because this is probably on the ladder. We are on Daybreak, unless I am very much mistaken, and that's basically all you need to know. Protoss versus Zerg is a very fun matchup to watch. The Battle of the Aliens. It's exciting. It is exciting. Just because you see a lot of early pressure from the Zerg traditionally, as well as a bit more of a defensive stance from Protoss, and then they can push out on that one base or two base power play. Not really an all-in, but a very powerful attack that sometimes wins them the game, sometimes gets held back by Zerg, and it goes on to the late game. Traditionally, though, you see the Forge Fast Expand coming out of Phek. However, he is showcasing a build that he's working on, and he's looking for input from anyone and everyone. And his build opening is basically a gateway fast expand. He throws down the Forge immediately after the gateway, but the gateway does come first, and it is on the low ground. So it can be kind of risky there. You don't have the added protection afforded by a photon cannon throwing down, and if Omicron were to be going for some sort of a bit more high pressure build, such as a tin pool, Phek might be in trouble. But the metagame currently is definitely gearing away towards away from that early pressure towards the grabbing the three bases, because it's so difficult to hold off that Forge Fast Expand. I think this is going to be popular for a very long time, as long as the Forge Fast Expand remains the prevalent opening for Protoss. Zerg's going to have to go for a later pool so that they can get up a stronger economy and actually compete with Protoss, who can just, two base like a champ. 15 pool coming down from Omicron. That gateway is also down for Phek on the low ground. He's also got that pro position once he ticks up past that 150 mark. I don't think he's going to go straight for the Nexus, though. Like I said, it's going to be that Forge first. But now he's got quite a lot of money left over. Probably going to have to throw down another pylon shortly if he hasn't already. Didn't do a pylon block, did he? No, he did not. No pylon block for Omicron, so he's going to be able to take that second hatchery on the natural location. No issues there at all. The spawning pool has just popped, and we can see that the first round of Zerglings is out and underway. The probe has been pushed back by Omicron. Phek having to retreat just to keep that probe alive. His shields are going to be doing plenty for him, though. And you know what? We don't see any aggression coming out of Omicron, so even though this wall-off is not complete, even though we have absolutely no units up on the field to hold back any sort of push, that photon cannon's going down right whenever those first two Zerglings are getting out on the field. Unfortunately, that probe running onto creep signifies its end, so that first kill, first blood going to Omicron. Still no gas out of Omicron, though, so he's not going to grab any super early speed or be teching towards those roaches. We'll probably see a third hatchery drop down in short order. Speaking of supplemental buildings, the cybernetics core going down on the left side just to complete that wall off, that small gap shored up by the probe. But we'll see that first zealot, which is halfway done right now on the production tab. We'll be filling that void shortly. The Nexus will be finishing without any harassment as that first gas is being grabbed. The second stage of Phek's build is for him to transition to some light pressure, followed up by he calls it an early 4-gate, but I don't think an early 4-gate is the proper term. Early because he's throwing a bunch of resources into it to get it up as fast as he can, but because he went for that Forge Fast Expand, it's not really going to be hitting at that. I don't know what the traditional timing is for a 4-gate right now, because it's not as popular as it used to be, but sometimes you'd see it 7-8 minutes, and it would be absolutely devastating there. But without the Cybernetics core starting on that warp gate tech, and constant chrono boosts being thrown into it, I really don't see that timing getting hit. He has been tanking his energy. I'm not sure, the platinum level, it's difficult to gauge where slipping macro mechanics begins and where an actual build order ends, but that energy can definitely key in later. There's quite a lot of upgrades that still need to be researched. He's going to be grabbing that 4-gate and then transitioning more to blink and a bit more of a robo play after that, but we will see how it evolves later on. Omicron, though, is grabbing that third hatchery, so no issues from him. He's not going to be going for that super aggressive style of Zerg play. He's content to sit back on that 3 base, get up plenty of drones so that the mineral income can be solidified, and then he's going to be grabbing his gas, already starting on the 2 extractors, as well as throwing down a roach warren so they can use that gas on something, or an evo chamber also. So he's kind of content with the drone count he currently has. I expect we're going to see another round of drones shortly. Unfortunately, with the pylon being placed down at the 4th location in the bottom right, it's not actually being built yet. But the 2 zealots and single stalker are pushing out. This is that light pressure I was talking about. It's not so much to do any damage, because it's really not. It's going to take out a queen, and these drones will be able to retreat without any issue at all. I mean, we've got 12 zerglings on the way, plenty of money from Zerg, so that he can actually stockpile a bunch of roaches once that roach war finishes. But really, this is just to buy time so that Phek can get up the units back at home. The unit producing structures, still just 1 gateway right now, but that's warp gate tech is on the way, and we can see that the 4 gate is actually beginning to be built now. But we're at the 8-minute mark now, which is when most traditional warp gates, 4 gates, would be hitting. So, and not exactly early. It's definitely not going to take Zerg by surprise, but 4 gate is still pretty powerful. I mean, it's quite a lot of units, and they can do quite a lot of damage. And we will see what type of damage they can do, because Omicron is actually in really good shape as far as harvester counts concerned. He's grabbed that 3rd gas down at the natural. He's got roach warren up. Oh wow, he's grabbing all the sorts of gas down at the 3rd also. He's gonna, I wonder what type of build he's gonna be transitioning into, because you don't need that much gas for roaches. Maybe we'll see the lair switching up into maybe an airplay. I don't know. I do not know. It's a lot of gas, though. Regardless, it's quite a lot of gas, and depending on what type of units we'll be seeing coming out of Zerg, you know, the robo play that Phek is eventually going to be working towards might have a hard time against some sort of heavy airplay, because, you know, immortals are pretty immobile, and colossi have a pretty hard time against corruptors. There goes all sorts of chrono boosts being thrown down on all the warp gates, and this is why we have 4 zealots already warped in on the down by the 4th, and then on the low ground we see another 4 stalkers joining into the fray. This is going to be a bit more of the heavy pressure side of things, and Zerg does not have a lot to hold off against it. He does have 11 Zerglings, and that queen goes down pretty much instantly, just because this is a pretty powerful push right here. For the timing, at the 10-minute mark, if Omicron was going for a bunch of roaches or something like that, this would be just squashed 100% of the time. But because that 3 base play is what Omicron was doing, and because that's so incredibly popular right now, it's a safe assumption to make that this sort of push is going to be relatively successful. I mean, it's shut down this 3rd base completely. The unit's loss tab is so heavily in Protoss's favor right now. It can show you just this sort of timing attack absolutely works. Absolutely. Those zealots are probably not going to work very well against those roaches, but the roaches in turn are going to have a very hard time against so many stalkers out on the field. But how long will those stalkers stick around? I don't think they're going to be equally successful if they push up to the natural. Multiple roaches are streaming out just to reinforce this area, and as the creep gets underfoot of those stalkers, they have to worry about getting surrounded, so they're going to pull back. We can see Blink has been started. He's going to be spending chrono boosts on that. Again, that energy is still pretty high. And that robotics facility has been added on in conjunction with 2 more warp gates. So we're down to about the perfect number of unit producing structures, as well as lending just a little bit of extra gas so that more tech can be added on later. I'd like to see these assimilators being grabbed. Protoss, there's no reason not to have a ridiculous amount of gas. If you have extra gas, you can throw down sentries instead of zealots, and their force fields can do far more damage than an extra 2 zealots. A single sentry that has a lot of energy can be incredibly priceless, especially just with a guardian shield. Very successful indeed. So there goes those 2 assimilators. Unfortunately not in time enough for the robotics facility to come out. But the +2, are we on +2 yet? We are on +2. Is being added on. A lot of stalkers out, and that's going to be fantastic against the heavy roach play, which Omicron's basically being forced into. He doesn't have the extra gas income that he was banking on for the 3rd, so that he can't get up the gas heavy units that he wanted to get up. I don't think he's going to have enough to get out the number of infestors necessary. I think he's going to have to rely more on roaches to do the damage, but roach infestor is a pretty powerful workforce, I'll tell you that right now. So Phek's got his work cut out for him. He did do a lot of damage with that first push, 70, well, almost 70 harvesters to about 50 from Protoss side of things. So Phek's a little behind on the economy, but that's to be expected with this 3rd. And he's got 2,000 minerals just saved up. He's going to be spending it a bit on the gateway, but anytime you see that much money definitely time to add on either more pressure or, more likely, more unit producing structures. That gas is really holding you back. I mean, you've got 150 gas, but over 2K minerals. And the reason you haven't been able to spin that minerals is because you don't have the gas necessary to buy those expensive units, multiple Colossus, multiple robotics facility producing immortals. Those are the sort of things that you can tack on whenever you find that you have this much money. Also, this Nexus could probably be grabbed if once you saw that the 4-gate push was so successful as to take out the third. It's a reasonable expectation that you're not going to see a counterattack as long as you're pretty successful in the amount of damage that you do, like you were. You could probably go ahead and grab the Nexus up at the third just because you're feeling comfortable, you're feeling confident, and this sort of stuff at the 15-minute mark is pretty delayed, just because you know that Omicron's going to be grabbing his hatchery once you pull back, and you don't want to get too far behind on the economy because that kind of undoes all the damage that you did earlier, and it also gives Omicron plenty of time to get out more intimidating army. And when these roaches decide to push out, you're going to have a harder time defending this third. But it looks like you're taking motions against that, also having a good job there getting out all those sentries so that you can control that battlefield, moving away from zealots so that the sentries can be a bit more of a buffer for the rest of the units. Those immortals are also going to be absolutely priceless against these roaches. +1 against the +2, and the pylon on the high ground will be continually supplying this. So here comes the push. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plenty of force field. Really cutting this up. You'd expect them to pull back just a little bit so you can engage these roaches without having to fear from the splash from the back, but their range is so short. Absolutely getting just stomped. Again, the resources lost tab really evening up. The roaches proving to be incredibly cost effective against this composition, but overall the stalkers come out on top, especially with their blink. Didn't see any blink micro out of that. Remember, you have that upgrade, so you can definitely improve the longevity of your stalkers. Only one of them has taken hull damage out of this group, which means that once you notice that their shields are gone, just blink them back, or wait for 2 seconds into the engagement and then blink back the entire front row. No problem there. Either way, it's very, very easy micro to do in the heat of battle. But I understand that your attention was probably focused on those force fields, which are probably equally important. Remember, the 100 gas is all you have still at the 1800 minerals. Only now grabbing those assimilators. Usually whenever I grab an expansion, if that's the third, I'll key up the Nexus and then both assimilators just automatically. The only time you really don't want to do that is the natural. Good micro there from Phek, placing the probe on the photon cannons. Have you guys noticed that I'm talking directly to Phek while I'm doing this, and then I'm like, oh yeah, it's an excellent play there. I'm impartial. No, I'm not. I'm terribly impartial. I love Zerg though. I really do. I play Zerg, so I want Zerg to win. But I have a feeling since Phek's the one who put in this replay, that's probably not going to happen. And this is why it's not going to happen. I mean, that's a ridiculous amount of stalkers. They're very mobile because of that blink. They've denied this third. Omicron is definitely on the back foot as far as the economy goes. 70 harvesters, but his economy is actually lower than Phek because of this. He's only got a very small amount of drones working his main, whereas he's got 3 whole pages of drones. Well, not whole pages, 2 whole pages of drones down at his natural. So that's just a lot of wasted income right there, and it's because he's feeling contained, which is usually Zerg making Protoss feel contained, but it's on the other foot, very uncomfortable for Protoss, definitely not something he's used to. And he's also being forced to be cost effective, and that's going to throw him for a loop because it's a lot of roaches, and roaches against stalkers are kind of slow unless they're on creep, which they are. So I don't know, he's going to feel kind of nervous about the blink. The jump in potential of those blink stalkers is very high, and as he's being forced to grab so many different expansions so that he can use the 70-some drones that he has, he's exposing himself to the harassment potential of those blink stalkers. The 20-minute mark, just a little bit of a harassment there, but that's fantastic because it's followed up by this 2-pronged attack. You got the stalkers hitting the 4th. Also, I expect to see him swing down and hit the 3rd too, just keeping Zerg contained so that Zerg has to meet them out on the battlefield. A bit of a turnaround from the traditional roles that these races would play. is the fact that Protoss really wants to engage in a place where they can get a concave, because he's got a numerically superior force. I mean, how many roaches are we dealing with? 39 to 37, but it's backed up by those immortals. It's also backed up by the supplemental warp gates back at home. I mean, he's got 8 of them, I think, plus the one down on the low ground. Yeah, that's 8. Here comes that engagement. There goes the concave, definitely in favor of Omicron, just because he got a superior concave, and backed up by the fungals from Omicron, holding back the Stalker and the Immortal, specifically the Immortal, caught off guard. Is going to get chased down by those roaches and taken out. Not the best engagement for Phek, but he did take out that 4th, and the 3rd is still being mined off of. Oh wow, where did all those... Okay, he's still got 70. Where'd they go? Oh, they were transferring down. Oh my goodness, I thought that I lost. Like, Phek came in and just decimated the entire harvester count. I'm like, oh, it was a terrible engagement for him. No, it was not. He crippled the economy, but he didn't, unfortunately. And we're going to see that economy actually boom back up in the favor of Zerg. So even though Phek's been pretty successful at keeping Zerg contained, he hasn't been capitalizing on it in the manner that you would, which is grabbing, you know, another expansion and teching super high. He's still very much behind on gas. He's got a good amount of income. I mean, he's mining fully off of all of these assimilators, but he's just got so much minerals saved up from that earlier low point for the gas income that he hasn't been able to 100% recover. And he's been spending a lot of his gas on a lot of expensive upgrades. The +3 weapons, Colossus, and the range for Colossus are very heavy in the gas income. I think what he needs to do is go out, push out, take this 4th. And feel confident in the fact that he can. I mean, he's 160 over 200, 160 under 200, with Zerg being up at 200, but a lot of that is going to be in roaches. This is a really nice unit composition for Omicron. Unfortunately, with the range for the Colossus finishing, the single Colossus, 2 Colossus that are out on the field, are going to be able to absolutely melt the Hydralisks, and also the Infestor count's pretty low. I mean, 4 Infestors, it's a good number, and they've got quite a lot of energy because they've been out for a very long time and we haven't seen a bunch of engagements. So they're going to have enough energy to do their thing, but if we see multiple engagements, which is very likely, this could turn poorly for Omicron if he runs out of energy. Here comes the push. The Colossus going to work on all of those roaches. We can see a nice fungal growth as well as an excellent blink play from Phek, blinking back his weakened stalkers. You can see all those with low shield count, blinking forward now that he's feeling comfortable, forcing a little bit of the last gasps of energy from a handful of those infestors. But it looks like Omicron's in shape to lose around half of his army with another blink forward from Phek. This is exactly what needs to happen, and he needs to keep pushing, take out that 4th, and then hopefully he's got the map awareness to know about these 2 hatcheries in the bottom right quarter, and he doesn't wrongfully push up to the top left. He does have a stalker in that location. If you were watching the mini-map, he actually just blinked him, this little guy. Oh, he's going to be taken out by those Hydralisks. That's not very good. But those Hydralisks, in turn, are going to be chewed up by all of those Colossus. And Phek comes out on top. Little things to work on. You mentioned, Phek, that in the message you sent me when you said you wanted this game looked at, was that you know that your macro is a little bit off. It's a new build that's to be totally expected. You know it. I know it. But feel comfortable, feel confident with your ability to push out and do damage here in that 3rd. That's ridiculous. In that 3rd, when you took out that 3rd, you should know that unless you see a ridiculous number of roaches just being constantly produced and being forced back by Omicron, that you can take this 3rd and feel pretty comfortable in that. You did damage. You can sit back and capitalize on the advantage that you took. And by delaying that 3rd, you put yourself behind a little bit on the economy timing-wise of what you wanted to do. And I think this attack could have happened several minutes earlier if you had grabbed that 3rd a little bit earlier. And that's strictly because of the gas. The gas is really what's holding you back on this. That's basically it. I mean, obviously, you know all about Blink Micro. You did it in that last engagement. You didn't do it in the first one. But that's the sort of thing that you probably were paying more attention to the sentries, and in all honesty, sentry force fields are probably going to win you a match more than the other one. Good job in putting together your build. The only other critique I'd wonder, and I'm curious to get your feedback on it, would be when exactly do you expect to win with this build? Is this final unit composition, what you want to win. I'm actually going to flick back to it. Is this exactly when you want to win, when you have pure Stalkers and pure Colossus, or were you expecting to win when you pushed out with those Immortals the first time, or maybe it was the 4-gate? It seems like you're just buying time until you eventually wear down your opponent, which is fine, absolutely fine, as long as that's what you're intending on doing. If you don't intend on doing it, then I would a little bit clearer define exactly when you want to push, and then see if you can get it so that some of your upgrades line up a little bit neater, like your push lining up with the +1. Maybe start the +1 before you actually do the 4-gate, because I mean it's delayed to the point where if you started a +1 on the Forge, which was done before the Cybernetic core, by the time your Warp Gate tech finished, your +1 would probably be very, very close to being done, and you could push out with that advantage and make your 4-gate push even more devastating. And I mean, you did a good job with it, especially with the 3 bases from Zerg, which is super common. This time for real, we're going back to the Phek. Hey guys, if you have a game you want casted, I usually don't do looks at straight up build orders, because I'm terrible, but partially because there are better people who do it far better than me. But if you have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Ibigandscary. Thanks, Phek. Bye.